I want to come at you with a tweet from Anthony Popliano. He says, Venezuela just tried to withdraw $1.2 billion of their own gold out of the Bank of England. They were denied this request by the bank. If you don't think uncensorable, unseizable money is going to become the standard, you're absolutely nuts, he says. And then he says, long Bitcoin, short the bankers. And boy, do I agree with that. Long Bitcoin, short the bankers. What he's basically saying is that when push comes to shove and it comes to money, the banks and the governments that are behind the banks are going to do everything that they can to keep themselves in power, and they're going to use our money to do it. They're going to seize our money, they're going to censor our money, they're going to tell us that it's our patriotic duty to pay down the debt of the country, a debt that our politicians have run up and created, and they're going to try and get off scot-free. I want to take a look at some of the things that have come up in recent history here to show us that the banks and the money system that we have today is on shaky ground and in desperate need of help. This says here, basically backing up what Popliano said, it says U.S. successfully lobbies the Bank of England to block Maduro's access to $1.2 billion in Venezuelan gold reserves. Basically, it goes on to say that the U.S. and the U.K. and other countries recognize one of the guys who's running for power in Venezuela as the official leader of Venezuela. Therefore, they're backing him, and they're working with the Bank of England to lobby them to keep the money and the gold reserves in their bank that belongs to Venezuela out of the hands of Maduro. Right now, at this point, it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong. The very thing is what Anthony Popliano was saying is that whatever the banks and the governments have to do to keep themselves in power, they're going to try to do it. And what I want to do is I want to take a look at a couple of the things that have gone on in the last 10 years or so to bring us to the point where we're at today, and to kind of help you see that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general are the thing that's coming. It's the new wave. It's the thing that's on the horizon, and it's coming with a vengeance, and it's coming quickly. I'm going to take a look here at this news article here from the New York Times back on the 23rd of this year, in January 23rd of this year, 19. It says the crisis in Venezuela was years in the making, and here's how it happened. The article goes on basically to discuss how over the last 35 years that the leaders in Venezuela have basically done what they wanted to do at the cost of the people. They have run the country down. They have destroyed the infrastructure. They have destroyed the government. They've destroyed all the finances, and they've destroyed the resources that they had available to them, and they did it for their own selfish gain. At one point in time, Venezuela had a oil reserve that was the richest. It was even richer than Saudi Arabia's and Iran's oil reserves, and they were larger by far. But Venezuela had basically meted out their reserves to people that they owed money to because their government was corrupt and they were doing things that were underhanded, and in the end it cost Venezuela dearly. And therefore today, as it sits, Venezuela is in an extreme crisis. As a matter of fact, they're sitting right now at a point where their inflation and their cost of living is through the roof. Their mismanagement has cost them dearly, and their economic system is basically collapsed, and they are in crisis. They have their inflation has ballooned to 1,000,000%, which basically says that their money is worthless. So you might as well just take the money and just burn it in the fire, because it's takes you so much money just to buy a loaf of bread that people can't live on what they're making, and therefore you have all the unrest and the chaos that you have. Also want to take you to another country's debt crisis, Greece. We see here that Greece, in this article, they go on and they talk about Greece and how Greece was reestablished with, they reestablished their government in their country, and they were on a good footing and they were going down the right road until their government leaders got greedy and they started doing things to line their own pockets, as in every government basically that is on the face of this earth. It says here in the article, in 2010, their first bailout for Greece was a bailout of 110 billion euros. That's basically equivalent to $146 billion in US dollars. And that was in loans that they took out over 3 years. And the bailout didn't do any of the things that they were expecting to be able to do with the money. It didn't avoid the default. It didn't avoid the pitfalls. It didn't avoid any of the austerity that that Greece was trying to avoid. And then again in 2012, they get another EU bailout, and again 130 billion euros for debt. And then they go again to a third bailout, and they continue to spiral down, and they continue to go deeper in debt with no ability to pay their debt. And then they go to the EU and they ask for forgiveness on the debt. Now, the reason why the Greece and Venezuela and Cyprus and countries like that are in such a crisis is because not only did their governments mismanage their funds and destroy their country, their economic system, and their ability to create wealth and to maintain it, so did America. The Great Recession, quote unquote, of 2008, which they said was the worst economic disaster since the Great Depression in 1929. By the numbers, the Great Recession of 2008, 31% decrease in the price of housing. There was over 9% unemployment in the country in 2010. And there was $140 billion moved from money markets to treasury bonds. Basically what that was, they moved $140 billion out of the stock market and moved it into conservative bonds where you weren't getting much action out of it. It was stagnant. There wasn't anything going on in the markets. Nobody was making money, and there was no ability for anybody to get ahead. The federal government bailed out AIG to the tune of $150 billion. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guaranteed 90% of all mortgages, and in doing that, the Treasury Department ended up spending $350 billion buying bank and car stocks, and they were basically deciding who won and who lost in the market. They were actually picking the winners and the losers in the market that we call free trade or capitalism. And they had $30 billion in federal loan guarantees. They also backed deals made between Bear Stearns and JP Morgan. And the government is not supposed to be doing that. Then you have Cyprus. As if all those things weren't bad enough. Then you have the new thing that came in after all those bailouts and all those governments started to go belly up and all that money was printed and became worthless. Then you have the next thing that started to happen globally in the banking system. It was called bail-ins. Instead of bailouts, where the government would come in, print up a bunch of money, and save the day and look like a hero, they actually, banks across the world, the central banks throughout all of the world, decided that they were going to write into their paperwork and into their outlines of how they were going to run their banks. They decided to put a clause in there for bail-ins. And basically, bail-ins are nothing more than the bank saying, hey, we're going to shut the bank down at such and such a time for so long a period of time, and we're going to basically help ourselves to your money. What they would do in the case of Cyprus, when they did their bail-in, they ended up shutting the bank down, telling people they had no access to any of their money, and what they started doing was they started taking 3 to 5, 7, 9, and 10% off of the accounts of people's savings and checking accounts, and they basically stole the money from the people to pay their debt when they're the ones who were running it up. The people had nothing to do with it. They had no word on what was happening And in the end, the people, the hardworking people of the country, ended up having that debt on their back. Now, I say this all because, there's a lot of talk nowadays about cryptocurrency, about Bitcoin, about the markets, and about all the things that are happening in governments around the world, in banking around the world, and all the uncertainty with financial markets. But my question to you tonight is, where do you stand? Do you believe cryptocurrency is something that is a tool, something that can help? Do you believe the stories where it says, oh no, well, it's only for the drug dealers and for those who want to hide their transactions and their money, who want to use the Silk Highway to be able to buy things where nobody can see what's going on? Do you believe that it's a opportunity for terrorists to be able to launder their money and to be able to continue to work their mayhem throughout the world and destroy innocent people? Well, I want to take a look at the price of Bitcoin here over time. And from the time of the economic crisis in about 2009 all the way up to today, you're going to see that based off of this chart here, that Bitcoin, and anytime I use the term Bitcoin, I'm talking about cryptocurrency in general. Right here, Bitcoin, the coin Bitcoin, is in 2011, in January of 2011, their price was 31 cents a coin, a token. And then January of 2012, you see that the price had gone up to $6.65. That's quite an increase. And then you see in January of 2013, you come in and the price of Bitcoin was about $13.41 on average. And throughout the year, the price moved up and it moved down, and it did the things that markets normally do. Then in 2014, when things continued to get worse in the world economic stage, you found that Bitcoin actually ended up in January of 2014 that it was actually in the 800 range mark, $800, $850 per coin mark. Then you had a small correction through 2014 to 2015, and by January of 2015, the price was about $280 a token. Then you had continued uncertainty throughout the world with all these economies and these governments going belly up and asking for bailouts and bail-ins and everything like that. And then in 2016, you see in January that the price was round about $438. And then 2017, January of that year, it was about $985. And then in 2018, in January, you saw that the price had spiked to 14,000 in late December, and it has spiked to 15,000 in January of 2018. And then, of course, since then, we've seen a decline in the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general across the market. And today we sit right around the $3,600 per token mark on Bitcoin. Now, if you look at that, that's a quick scenario and a synopsis of the price of Bitcoin and how it's gone through increasing in price and in value throughout all these economic downturns. So the question is cryptocurrency and Bitcoin the next answer for financial stress and strain throughout the world? I personally think it is. You may not think it is, but I encourage you to do your homework. Do your homework and find out about these governments, about the bailouts and the bail-ins, about Greece and Cyprus and Turkey even. I didn't even have Turkey in here, but Turkey's another one that I could have highlighted. And then Venezuela and, of course, the USA. All these countries and all these nations, their governments have basically printed money into where they've taken their countries into oblivion, and to the point where their economies have been trashed, and the value of a dollar is not a true value of a dollar. It's so inflated and so hyperextended that something has to happen, something has to come about to bring a leveling effect. And I personally believe that it's the cryptocurrency market that's going to do that, because when you get to a point where the cryptocurrency market is decentralized, which means no one government, no one nation, no one country has control over the money of the world, and that it is spread out, and the average Joe can get to money and make sure that his money is actually worth what it should be worth. and they can actually buy and sell things, and the government has no hold on them, what they can buy and what they can't buy and what the price is going to be. I think it's going to be a nice equalizer for the cultures and the countries of the world. So do your homework, consider what I'm saying, look at it objectively, and do your own homework and get your own ideas and your thoughts. And once you do, I'd like you to email me. I'd like you to comment down below in the text box. And I'd like you to let me know what you think. Is what I'm saying a bunch of hogwash? Is there some validity to it? Do you believe what I'm saying? Do you half believe what I'm saying? Do you think that I'm just, just sucking wind? And let me know what you think. I'd like to hear what you have to say. For those of you who may be in the cryptocurrency market, if you want to make sure that your cryptocurrency is secure, then there's a link below in my description here for a Ledger Nano S and for a Trezor wallet. You can follow those links and you can find information on how to store your cryptocurrency offline so that it's secure and nobody can touch it but you, and nobody can use it or trade or move it around but you. You certainly don't want to keep it on an exchange, that's for sure. And then also check out my other channels down below. I have ABCs to Wealth, and then I have the ABCs to Wealth on Facebook, and then Bill Treadway on Facebook as well. So check those out. You'll find those links down below, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.